Coming up on January 24th at Lake Minnewasha in Minnesota, we're holding our first inaugural wellness retreat. It's a half day called Sauna Camp. All the details are at curiousbuilderpodcast.com under events, Sauna Camp. We're doing a half day retreat. Someone that we interviewed a few weeks ago named Dr. Mel Krug. She's going to lead us through some somatic breath work. We have rented out the entire camp. You're going to walk down into the water, use your breathing techniques. Then you're going to go into the sauna, rinse and repeat. And at the end, we have a Mediterranean cook cooking an outside wood fire grill for everyone that's there to kind of embrace the community and really take a break as we kind of go into the new year with a fresh outlook. If you'd like to join us, you're going to have a lot of other business owners there, builders, architects, designers. Some are flying in from across the country. It's going to be a great event. Again, that's January 24th, Sauna Camp. We'd love to see you there.
I understand why some people don't want to be entrepreneurs so young. They're like, I'm young, I want to have fun, go party, do all this kind of stuff. And I can understand that. But if you aren't interested in that and you're interested in just making your dreams a reality at a young age, I think it's right to just be an entrepreneur at a young age. Because I never really I couldn't care less about not going to a party or stuff, all these like normal high school worries. So I think sacrificing time and somewhat sacrificing part of your high school youth. But I think if you transition your mindset to a different type of youth, then it's not exactly sacrificing it.
Today in the Curious Builder podcast, we had Brody Tschida on from Urban Elite. Super cool episode. 17-year-old in high school, started his business, reached out, was featured in the Star Tribune, a local paper here in Minneapolis. And I really talk a lot about on the podcast about getting our youth into construction, into trades, but it's really about ownership and entrepreneurship and, taking control of your life and hearing his mindset, his ideas on what it takes to sacrifice. And, we talk a little bit about people that have inspired him. Really, really powerful episode. I hope you enjoy. Without further ado, here's Brody Tschida. Welcome to the Curious Builder podcast. I'm Mark Williams, your host. Today I'm joined with Brody Tschida from Urban Elite, a young 17-year-old high schooler from Apple Valley, Minnesota. Welcome to the studio, Brody.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, so I'm super pumped to have you on. Probably more excited than I've been in quite a while. Mainly just we talk so much on the podcast about getting youth into our industry in particular, which is construction.
Mm-hmm.
And you happened to reach out, I think it was like November, December. I'm not even sure how you found out about it. And you said, hey, I'd love to come on the podcast. And I was like, oh my word, this is perfect. We'll talk obviously about Urban Elite. We'll start with that. But I think a big part of it is understanding like entrepreneurship while you're in high school. That needs to be celebrated. And the whole goal of this is to obviously hear about your story, where you've been, where you are, where you're going, and also to encourage other people out there that listen to the podcast to do things similar, either with their children or share it with others that are in high school, because being an entrepreneur is certainly not without its challenges between mindset and sacrifices and all the things that we'll get into that you need to do. That's really what the American dream is to if you believe it, do it. So
got to keep it alive.
Yeah. So tell us about Urban Elite. Tell us what it is, how long you've operated it, and we'll just dive into it.
Yeah. Urban Elite is my clothing brand. I started back in April of last year, and I mostly started it seeing so many people around me with a lot of ambitions and a lot of dreams, but no willpower or plan to make it happen. It's just a lot of stuff in their head, and they might think that they can't do it due to limitations or things that they think they can't do or fear of failure and stuff like that. I mostly made Urban Elite to not only show myself, but to show my peers around me and to show other young people that if I can do it, you can too. All my clothing I make, I design myself, and they all have motivation inside of them. Rather that's motivational quotes or innuendos or other things that just have a meaning behind them. I don't want to just make clothes that are just looking stylish and cool for the youth. I wanted something that actually pushes the message and is a movement. And I think I've done that so far. And I've made a good amount of appearances on the news and some other things that I've been able to get my message out there faster and farther.
Yeah, it was funny. I actually was reading, I think it was the Star Tribune article that I did on you. It was either right before you reached out to me or right after it came out. And I was like, oh man, this is pretty fortuitous. Why clothing? What was it about that was the way you wanted to express yourself?
Yeah, for one, I'm very big into clothing. Honestly, the funny thing is the clothing I make, I wear all the time, but it's not exactly my style. I wear a lot more business casual type of things and a lot of stuff like that. But I think it was mostly what can appeal to young people, but what can I also like to make, what is enjoyable to make and enjoyable to market. And I was looking at different things like products and other stuff, but what really landed was clothing because it's a fun thing. It's around like the youth and it's very trendy right now. And I always want to do something that I would have fun actually making and have vision in and see like something that I could change within it. And you don't see a lot of clothing brands that are all about motivation in their clothing. They might have a message or stuff like that, but to actually have motivation inside the pieces of clothing and have a bigger message around it, I just wanted to make a change in the clothing industry.
Where did that I love everything I'm hearing. That from the mindset standpoint, like I like you look around and that there's a need. There's something that's missing. And when did it first dawn on you that you wanted to create something? And then walk us through that evolution from the time that you 'cause sometimes it rattles around in your brain for a little
Yeah.
while and it's on rinse and repeat. And at some point you'd probably dawns on yourself like, I gotta do something. I either
Hmm.
gotta do it or otherwise I'm just like everybody else. I have this idea, but the real effort is not the idea. That is important,
Yeah.
but it's the action after it
100%.
that makes it a business.
Yeah.
Walk us through that maturation process.
I've never been the type of person that loves school and like sitting in class. That was something that one day I was just sitting in class, looking at the window like I normally do, thinking about how am I gonna make all my dreams a reality and how am I gonna do all these things that I want to do. And was just hearing for like days and weeks on end or years on end, to be honest, just different people say, I'm gonna do this when I'm older. I'm gonna be this when I'm older. All these different things, and all my whole entire life, I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I'm older until about 2, 3 years ago. I was just sitting on a vacation in Florida, and I was just thinking owning a business would be really cool, but I don't know how to do that. And I started off with snow removal, started that for a little bit with one of my friends, developed it into a different type of business. And then from there, honestly, clothing was it was very random. I seen the spark of clothing brands online, and I seen a lot of different clothing brands coming up, but I noticed that they were all very similar and they didn't really have a bigger message behind it. And I just thought if I wanted to make a brand or make something, I want it to be more than just clothing or more than just a brand. I honestly just started looking at different clothing brands being made and I saw the kind of trend inside of it. And I didn't know how to make clothes or do a business or anything like that at all when I started. I just looked up kind of some YouTube videos on how to make clothes and all this different things. Started with a few print on demand companies and just started testing the waters a little bit. And after my first pop-up shop is when I realized this is something that I could do and something I can make big. I realized that my pop-up shop, my first ever pop-up shop was at my high school at the time, and I made around $650 from that pop-up shop, and that was about how much I'd make in 2 different paychecks at my part-time job. So I was thinking, why am I spending 30 hours of my part-time job to make
That
$650?
was straight profit or was that just revenue?
That was just revenue,
Okay.
yeah. So it was just a turning point because at the time it was probably close to 400, 450 profit still, because I didn't actually put too much money starting in right away, which is something that a lot of people think you gotta put tons of money in right away, but it's honestly just about starting it. But after that, I just realized, why am I gonna put all this time into a part-time job and get paid for my time in that? Or I can put time in something that I actually enjoy and something that brings joy to other people and motivation to other people. So after that, I just went for it and just ran. I did pop-up shops a few times during that summer, and then
This
during
would be at like high school games, boosters. Like where are these pop-up shops? Like at
yes, like parking lot events, vendor events, all this kind of stuff that I was just finding online. And it was really fun learning everything myself. I just anything I've done, I'm fully self-taught with anything I've done, and it's honestly one of the most fun parts in my opinion because I get to educate myself on a new skill and make something new. After that first pop-up shop, I just kept researching how can I do this? How can I do this? Researching social media marketing, all this kind of stuff. And at the start, it wasn't great, but that summer from May till July-ish, it was just my testing grounds and just testing different things. And only in July, I only made $35 from my business, and then last month in December, I made close to $1,000, all revenue still, but still a big jump from that one month to December. And that summer, I just tested the waters, and then around August, I really just started going for it and having the ball rolling. That's when I had the Star Tribune article, and I reached out to them and asked if they wanted to do an interview with me, gave them a short story by myself, and then I really started getting into marketing and making videos and stuff like that in October. I got a cameraman that I'm really good friends with, and we just go down to Minneapolis and get some funny videos, and I edit it all myself and just make a lot of creative stuff. And I think I have a big advantage being a young person because I know what they want to see, I know what attracts people, and I've just kept learning and kept on getting better. And every month is just keeps getting better and better. And I've had so much fun with it. and I've just learned so much because of it.
That's amazing. Let's go back to the very beginning. So your first order, you bought. Walk us a little bit through. You said you're doing ready on demand shirt printing. So you'd either come up with the design or you'd come up with the message that you wanted. You did a run of what, 50, 100? Because at some point scale. Where I'm trying to go with this question is, at what point do you start scaling? Is everything limited runs? And then the second part of this question, we'll just start with that. When did you know, like when you do design something now, like looking on your website, you've got hoodies and you've got shirts and you've got other things that are printed. Like how deep will that catalog be? And once it sells out, do you create demand by once it sell out, that design is done? Or how do you engage your customer base now?
Yeah, at the start, I started off with 4 different hoodie designs and then 2 different shirt designs, probably only about 10 to 20 of each of the hoodies and shirts. And after those sold out, I restocked the hoodies that came out, and then I restocked a few of the shirts. But now all those original designs, there's none left except for I have a few white and red that I found back in stock, but otherwise those are gone forever. And that goes for most of my drops. If I see something that's really popular and just a statement of my brand, sometimes I'll keep stuff like that. Like I have a never give up tee, and that one is a very good one for my brand because it has a quote on the back and a message to it. And stuff that really makes like a statement like that, I'll keep in my catalog, and I'll have a few items like that I keep in my catalog, or my beanies or stuff like that. But otherwise, some of the more extravagant designs, like my Born to Love hoodie I released last month, that is a very limited edition one. So once that sells out, it's gone. And all these things, they're pretty limited. And I will be dropping a new drop about every 2 to 3 months for the most part. And so it's a mix between limited and staying in the catalog. But for the most time, yeah, they're limited.
I appreciate that. And it's been a long time since I've been in high school, but I'm just thinking of, there is something, I don't necessarily like the word exclusivity, but like rare, or when you have a small run of something, it does make it by its own nature special.
Hmm.
And then it's not, you're not the first person to invent supply and demand that way. It's just
Yeah.
a really cool way to market. At what point did you realize you either wanted to do that or you were doing that?
Honestly, it was some brainstorming. A lot of times, especially at the start, I would just be sitting in my bed before I go to bed and just daydreaming and how I'm going to make this happen. And I just thought if I can make it very limited and make it a demand, people are going to want to come in. People are going to be more enticed by it. So I think probably my second drop I ever done, that's when I started doing some of that kind of stuff. Where if I had something sell out, it wouldn't be coming back, and people would start asking, "Can you restock this? Can you restock this?" I'm like, "It's gone. You'll have to look for the next drop, and better get it before it's gone." Stuff like that. So after I seen the success in that, I started doing that a lot more because I realized that if it is, I also don't like the word exclusive, but if it is exclusive, then people are going to want to keep coming back.
I think rare.
Yeah,
I
I
like
think it's a
rare. It's a
more
rare
unique
find.
item.
Yeah, yeah. We'll go with that. We'll do a word search on that. The sayings, I like the messaging. Like right now, your hat says "Make your dreams a reality."
Yeah.
Where are they things that you're saying? Are they their generalities? Are they specific quotes of people that you admire? Where are you coming up with your messaging? It
Yeah,
seems very positive.
honestly,
It seems like most of them are very
oh yeah.
positive, very optimistic, very. I will let you
Yeah, I
answer.
wouldn't do a quote that's like your dreams aren't going anywhere. But honestly, most of them, I wouldn't like to say I made them. I've come up with them, but I'm sure they've been said by other people. I have a motivation page on Instagram separate from my brand that's a part of it. And with that, I do quotes from other people that I find and I believe in. But otherwise, for the most part, I think I mostly have came up with all of them and all the meanings behind them. Like one of my favorites that I'm sure someone has said before, but I have on my Never Give Up tee, and it's your dreams are just dreams. Nothing will work unless you do. Showing that if your dreams will stay dreams if you don't put the work in to make it happen.
I like that a lot. How are what the response? Were you surprised at the response early on? I assume you made some shirts for yourself, wore around
Mhm,
school, and then you told your friends, "Hey, buy a shirt." What is a shirt? I didn't look. I should have looked. What, like a
mhm.
t-shirt? What would a t-shirt sell for?
At the start, my first t-shirts were 35, I believe.
Okay, so that's pretty reasonable. And what are they now?
Still 35.
Okay.
I have one that's 40. It's actually a big thing I believe in my brand that no matter how big I get or no matter how cool the item, for the most part, I want to keep them pretty reasonable prices.
Yep.
My hoodies have spiked recently, but that's because of the difference in production. My first hoodies were like DTG printed and still good quality, but nothing like crazy amazing. Where my new hoodies I released in December, I took a long time finding a manufacturer for them, and the quality on them is really the best hoodies I've ever worn. And I'm not even saying that because I just own it, but I wear those hoodies that I've dropped in December literally all the time because they're super comfy and the printing on them took so long.
Were you just doing iterations, trial and error, or working with 3D manufacturers? Or I always find sourcing to be interesting in that
Yeah,
world, all worlds really.
honestly, so I started print on demand. The first two of my drops were print on demand. In my recent drop in December, I would buy blanks online shipped from overseas, and then I'd bring them to a print shop down in Minneapolis, two different print shops that I work with. For the most part, it is now being printed in store from by a print shop that I know. Otherwise, I have a few things that have been still a print on demand, like hats or stuff like that will be transitioned into printing in person. I've had a few problems with some manufacturers, very rarely, but I've had a manufacturer mess up an item that I couldn't release anymore and stuff like that.
It makes it even more rare, by the way.
Yeah, yeah.
Charge more for that.
Actually, I had some chains, some cross chains that were gonna come out in my last drop, but my manufacturer messed up on them very bad, so I couldn't release them. But a pop-up shop I had 2 days before the chains were supposed to arrive when I ordered the bulk of them, someone had bought one of the chains because I had my two sample products out, and someone wanted to buy one of them, and I told them it was a sample product, and they said, "Can I still buy it? I'll pay extra." And I said, "Sure," because I knew that I was getting them the next 2 days. And then when I got them the next 2 days, they were defective. And I was like, "Oh, so someone in the world has the only Urban Elite chain ever released."
Right.
So
What's funny about actually it reminds me, I've been married now for 11 years. And I think it was 13 years ago we were dating. I happened to be over in Florence, Italy. And I was with my dad on a trip. He and I were doing some mountaineering and hiking and whatnot, but we were down there for a day and went into the back shop of this artist studio. And it wasn't what he was selling. And it was a hand sketch. And I loved it. And I said, "Is this for sale?" He said, "It's not." But for whatever reason, I felt so,
mhm,
I was like, but I just want it the way it is right now. And of course, I'm sure he's thinking like, great tourist, I'm going to sell it to him more. But it's a little bit like that. It's like,
mhm,
it's not even the real product, but like this person obviously wants it a lot
yeah,
and I'm not able to finish it. It's almost like the potential of what the thing could be is actually worth more than what it will be. But I'll sell it to you because that's how you're reacting to it.
yeah,
Anyway, that your story of that chain elicited that memory.
yeah,
Kind of one and one.
yeah.
Interesting. How, from a scalability standpoint, let's talk a little bit. I guess I want to stay on the topic of who your client base is. So, is it mostly high schoolers? Are you seeing now? You have a beautiful website. Are you finding people all over? How is the marketing evolving now that you have a lot of people wearing the product? Where do you find your sales are coming from? Because I assume it's all online. People, you can sell it anywhere. Because I think I saw one of your questions was, do you ship overseas? And you said
Mhm.
yes. Where are you finding the majority of your sales? Is it starting to expand beyond Minnesota already?
Yeah, I for the first few months, only till like probably a month or two ago, it's been mostly Minnesota. And I do make most of my sales from pop-up shops and stuff in person because of how much pop-up shops that I do. I think after being on the news in December, that's when I started seeing some sales that were from other places. Like I had a sale from Chicago or Nebraska and Nevada and a few places that were outside of Minnesota. I've yet to get something outside of the United States, but as soon as that happens, I'm gonna be very excited about it. But for the most part, I think it's starting to get a little 50-50 between online and in person. I'm trying to shift and get a lot more online, but social media marketing is one of the hardest things I've realized over time because you can make really good content, but it's all about the algorithms of the different social medias to put you out there. So I'm trying to get my social media presence higher up and get a lot more online sales. But right now, I think most of my sales are in person. I've made a lot of sales for my high school in recently because I've probably sold to anybody who wants to buy from my high school. I've had a lot of people that I've seen wearing my clothes when I'm walking around school. And that's a really cool thing to see. It's definitely been a shift on how people have thought about me and my brand since I first started. A lot of people, when I first started, thought it was very weird and cringy and all this stuff. That, oh, this person's trying to follow their dreams. Ew. So like
Which
all
is
this
such a
kind of
weird thing
it
to look
is.
down
Yeah,
on, right?
yeah.
You're like,
I don't know. I
that
think
shirt is not for you.
I think it's mostly just it's easy to be envious when you're young like that, and a lot of people are just not as mature. When you run a business, I feel like it develops you into a different type of maturity than normal teenagers. I didn't really mind at the start. I've had a lot of that kind of stuff my whole life, so I was very easily able to just push it aside. And then I think after the Star Tribune and all these other things, I had people that were then like thinking it was weird, asking me like how they can do it and how I'm gonna do it and all this kind of stuff. It's very like funny to see the transition on how people think about you just because of how if you're being appeared on social media or on the news or stuff. It's just very weird and different, but something I noticed. But otherwise, most of my sales are just Minnesota, some states, a few out in Minnesota, but I'm trying to branch more into online sales.
This episode is brought to you by Adaptive. For over 2 years now, I've been using Adaptive. It's an incredible game changer. It's AI technology based. It helps you with bill pay. And as a builder, there's very few things that anger our subs more than not being paid on time. Well, those days are gone. Not only do you know exactly where you are, but you can pay people through your ACH channels, making draws extremely quick. With one click of a button, which used to take hours, my office staff is now able to generate a draw to the bank or to the client in literally seconds. The thing that I appreciate the most about Adaptive is their ability to keep changing. We've given them 3 or 4 feedbacks on the things that we need as builders, and within just a few months, they're rolling those things out. This is saving us hours per week and days per month in terms of our efficiency. If you're looking to upgrade your business, I'd highly recommend Adaptive. You can reach out to them at adaptive.com or listen to the Curious Builder podcast, episode 15 or episode 80, where we dive into their origin story. Now that kids in the school have been around for a year, they obviously understand you have a business. They've seen the press. They see that you're doing it. Have you seen any of either your friends or people that you know directly that have then decided to start their own business?
I would say yes and no. I've seen a few people attempt to start their own business and ask me for tips, and I give them tips for it. But I see them give up very quickly. And I think that's a very common thing with young people because it's that expectation that money's going to come right away. All this stuff is going to just come right away. And that's just not how it works. It's a very longevity type of thing. And just it doesn't happen overnight. I've been doing it for 9 months now. I'm still not at a crazy success, but it just takes a lot of time. And some people don't want to take all that time. And I also say like the comfortableness like factor. A lot of people want to be comfortable. They want to spend their money on going out to food with their friends or all these different things. Being a business owner, having to put all your money that you're making straight back into the business, not a lot of people are going to want to do that because they want to spend all this money on other things. But I don't buy myself like my own clothes or stuff. Luckily, I own a clothing brand, so I give them new clothes once in a while. But otherwise, not a lot of people want to make the sacrifices to actually make it happen. But anybody who is young that wants to start a business, I always usually reach out to them, try to help them a little bit. But it's always rather they want to do it, but they just don't have the motivation to, or they don't want to make the sacrifices, or some people will think that I'm being rude by reaching out because they want to do it all themselves. And I just want to give some tips because I didn't have anybody giving me tips at the time when I started. But I've had a few. I had a friend who started a photography business. She's been doing good so far, and I've been helping her through that. But
No, it's what it's really inspiring about it. And I just think of for me, whether it's podcasting or whether it's social networking groups or whatever it is you're doing, if somebody inspires you, or if you have an original thought, so be it. But then pretty much your community, your vibe attracts your tribe, and you start. Someone told me recently, either accumulation of your top 5 friends.
mhm.
And so be
Yeah,
careful
yeah,
who
yeah.
you're friends with. But like the entrepreneur side is like eventually people see this energy and you start hanging around with other entrepreneurs as you become older.
Mhm.
You're still in high school, but it'd be kind of cool to see how maybe other high schoolers would see, oh, this is available. I could do this if I want. That's where I was kind of going. And I do talk about that sacrifice, people that are business owners. And I think those that aren't, like, how do I phrase this? Because it's not meant to be egotistical. A lot of times people will look on the outside. I've owned a business for 20 plus years, and it's not all sunshine and roses. Like it's hard. Like I
Mhm.
wake up at 4:15 in the morning.
Mhm.
Guess what? I got to go to bed at 8:15,
Oh yeah.
9 o'clock in order to wake up at that
Yeah.
time. And so, not that I believe in boundaries create freedom. So I don't think you should work all that time. The reason I'm waking up that early is to do wellness stuff and
Mhm.
running and other things I want to do. But I've got young kids. I've got different responsibilities at
Yeah.
different points in my life. And right now it's you.
Mhm.
And so where I'm going with this is that people on the outside look in and they see whatever success is to them. Like success is, I'm doing air quotes for those that aren't watching this,
Mhm.
but like success is somewhat what you determine as
Oh yeah.
success. Like success could actually be making no money, but you are satisfied, you're fulfilled, you feel
Mhm.
like you're met. There's a number of ways that you could define
Yeah.
success. Before I go further, let's ask you, how would you define success?
Ooh, that's a loaded question. I don't know. I think success to me is being at a place where I think this business that I've made has reached a lot of people, has seeing other people being motivated by it. I think success for me isn't like just having a ton of money as some people might think it is, but it's mostly just seeing a ton of people be motivated by the stuff that I'm putting out there and reaching the people that I want to reach. So I think that's a big part for me. I think success to me is just seeing the people be motivated by my clothing and seeing people want to start a business because of it. But I'd like to say it's also being somewhere that I think I've made success in my business. But honestly, I think it's very common with a lot of entrepreneurs that you get to a big milestone, and then you're just like, okay, what's next? I gotta keep growing and keep pushing out there. I don't know if there's ever going to be a place that I'm like, oh, I think I've reached success, but I think my success is seeing other people be motivated by what I'm doing.
I think that's a great answer. I think, and you already touched on it earlier in terms of, I think innovation and evolution go hand in hand.
Mhm.
And it'll be interesting for me and for yourself really to watch at how your company evolves and continues to innovate, whether it's different product lines or different messaging. And because you're going to grow as a person too,
Mhm.
like the things that you're stating, the messaging that you have is I assume it comes from you.
Yeah.
It comes from what you believe and what
Mhm.
your hopes and your goals are. And so as that changes, so will your messaging.
Yeah.
And part of it will be your client base. Will they
Mhm.
come with you? Will it be a new client? And that's actually really inspiring because I think any business that starts and then doesn't innovate, like they're gone. They
Yeah.
fall away. If you're not innovation, it's like a fish. You're not swimming, you're drowning.
Yeah.
You're not breathing. So what would you say? You talked a little bit about sacrifices, about taking the money. What other sacrifices do you think, especially I don't think it's age dependent, but what are sacrifices that you've endured or recognized that these are sacrifices to start this business?
I would say time is a really big one. I sacrifice a lot of time that I could be playing video games, hanging out with my friends, or a lot of different things. And I just work a lot. I do a lot of stuff to try to make my dreams a reality. So I think time is really a big one. Sacrificing the time that you want to be young and do a lot of party or do these things that normal high schoolers do, that could be a big sacrifice for a lot of people. And I think I understand why some people don't want to be entrepreneurs so young. They're like, I'm young, I want to have fun, go party, do all this kind of stuff. And I can understand that. But if you aren't interested in that and you're interested in just making your dreams a reality at a young age, I think it's right to just be an entrepreneur at a young age. Because I never really I couldn't care less about not going to a party or stuff, all these like normal high school worries. So I think sacrificing time and somewhat sacrificing part of your high school youth. But I think if you transition your mindset to a different type of youth, then it's not exactly sacrificing it because I still, once in a while, I'll still play video games. I'll still go out and eat with my friends and all these things. But I don't think you have to take the stereotypical high school career and then you don't have to live like that. I think you can still be young and still have fun, but do it in a responsible way while still running a business.
Yeah, amen. You mentioned mindset. A lot of what you touched on, and as I'm observing it, obviously you're a very mature young man, and I assume people listening are going to be like, "Wow, that is a mature person. We need to get him into the construction world. We need to hire this guy." But talk to us about mindset. Like, when were you aware that your mindset was different than your peers?
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you have a mindset that's different.
Mhm.
But then there's like the realization, wait, I'm not like the other fish that are swimming.
Yeah.
So they're two different things.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a good question. I think honestly it was the difference in worries. I think in class I would hear people worried about the drama that's going on in school. These two people are dating. This is going on right now. We got a test on Friday. I'm so worried about. I'm so stressed. I got to do homework later tonight. And throughout all of that, rather I was in school or I was in bed or anywhere at all that I had some extra time with, it was just me in my head. I was just thinking, I this isn't for me. I don't know exactly why, but I'm not designed for this. I'm designed to do something on my own and make something my own. And I think that was one of the big things that I realized, or one of the ways I realized my mindset was mostly just so much young people are worried about what normal young people are worried about. And that just wasn't me. And I just was worried about totally different things. And I was just so focused on how am I going to make my life the life I want it to be, and all these things that some high schoolers just don't think about. And I think that's the biggest thing, and especially going to high school now, it's very hard actually, just because I don't relate to a lot of young people because I hear people talking about drama or the homework they have the next morning or like this test on Friday they're worried about, all this kind of stuff. And I'm worried about how I'm gonna get the next money for my next drop and all this kind of stuff. And
Like real world stuff. You're like, hey, wait a
yeah.
minute. I'm wondering, like, is my QuickBooks account going to work? Okay, when I got to pay my taxes, did I remember to account for sales tax
Yeah,
in my
yeah.
last sale? Yeah,
So I'm just like, I think during school I was just never there. I was just always in my mind and looking out the window, wondering what my next project's gonna be, all this kind of stuff.
What are your teachers? Obviously, being adults, maybe not entrepreneurs, but not there's no shame in that. But do they recognize? What do they say about you? Because I imagine I'm picturing you like drifting off, looking off to the
Mhm,
side, and they're like, "Hey, yo, Brody,
mhm,
yo, what's going on?" And you're thinking about like this cool design or this next
uh-huh.
hoodie or this next innovation. How do you interact with the teachers? What do the teachers say? because you still have to
Yeah,
do your
yeah,
homework. You
yeah,
still have to
yeah.
do these things
Oh,
that the
yeah.
other kids do, but
Uh-huh.
it's more like at this point a task. You're like, how soon can I get out of high school so I can
Yeah,
run this business?
100%.
Yeah,
I think it can definitely be 50-50. I think some teachers are very supportive. Some teachers don't like it. It can be a mix of both.
because they feel like it's a threat to their profession, or what? What?
Kinda.
Yeah.
Honestly, I feel almost like some teachers could be envious of what I'm doing, which is really weird to me. But I've had like teachers where I've tried to talk about my business to them or something, and they just shut it down or they don't want to hear it. And it's a really weird thing, but it just shows me the character of the person. Because
Do
I'm
you then give them a hat? Here, make your dreams a reality.
no, I've thought about it though. I do. That's how I interact with any hate comments I have. I usually send them a DM and I say, 'cause most people that try to send hate comments, they will comment on multiple videos at a time. You're not gonna make it. Nothing like this. I think most of the stuff is built on envy, but most of the time when I see that, I shoot them a DM and I'm like, hey, thank you for keeping up with the videos. Here's a discount code for liking and commenting on all the videos. So it's just like,
Have you ever had any of those people buy?
no, they get very mad. They
That's
don't like it.
amazing. That is amazing.
But I'm gonna fight negativity with positivity every time. So
Agreed. Honestly, it's amazing because everyone sees it in social media. I don't want to say aloof. I'm blind to it because I'm just like, hearing that story, I'm like, who has the time or the
mhm.
bandwidth? Forget the negativity and the mindset to even want to try to shoot someone's balloon. Like it's like it's honestly like a grandpa walking around like popping little kids' balloons.
Yeah.
At what are you doing, dude?
Yeah.
It just way to handle it with class though, because that's pretty dumb.
Yeah.
Going back to the teacher thing as it relates to one of the things I'm really passionate about is again getting more and more people. There's so much opportunity. The narrative when I went to school in the late 90s, I'm 44, and I'd say really for the last 50, 60 years, I don't know when it changed, but it was definitely like go to college. It's basically a feeder system for
Mhm.
corporate America.
Oh, yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I did go to college. I just can't remember anything I actually learned there.
Oh, yeah.
I had a lawn mowing business in high school, had it
Mhm.
sold it in college. I've only worked 1 year of my entire life for somebody else. Just
Mhm.
like you, I was like, wait a minute, why am I doing this? I enjoy, I have all these passions, I have this creativity. I want to do something with
Yeah.
it. And where was I going with this soliloquy? It was mainly, how do we empower? What would be a way that we could empower the youth to have more open doors? Like, for instance, specifically in construction, I don't actually know this, but like the common narrative out there is there's no shop class, no home ec class. Is that actually true? Do you have shop class in high school?
What do you mean?
Yeah, that answered the question. It's shop class. So you get to build stuff. Do you get to build like toolboxes? Do you get to build like
Um,
birdhouses? Do you build like CO2 cars? Do you do anything like woodworking, metalworking,
a
anything
little
like that?
bit. I know there's some, like, slight woodworking classes where you might make, like, a birdhouse or a like, a wooden car or something.
Okay.
Very slight. If it I wouldn't think it's probably very beneficial because of the fact that I took one of our, like, business classes at high school, and I actually it's probably one of the worst classes I've ever been in, and it was a business marketing class, and the first day I went in there, I asked the teacher, I said, "Have you owned a business? Have you worked for a business? How do you know this stuff?" And they're like, "Yeah, I learned about a little bit about it in college. I know some stuff about it." But I realized, like, the first, like, 2 or 3 weeks, all this stuff that he was telling me, I was already doing in my brand, and I already knew, and it wasn't very beneficial. And then it dawned on me, if a high school teacher owned a business, I don't think that they would be
Be
a
a
high
high
school
school
teacher.
teacher. Yeah.
So I switched that class, got out of there pretty fast. It just was not for me. Um, but I think the biggest thing is like kids acknowledging that if they want to be an entrepreneur, especially, or some other kind of stuff like that they can do by themselves, college is not necessarily 100% necessary that you have to do. I think it could be good for some people, and it is necessary in some fields like being, a lawyer, doctor, stuff like that. But I realized pretty fast from learning how to market and make a website, make clothes, all these things that I learned completely online through YouTube and other like social media platforms. I realized I didn't really need schooling to learn how to run a business. I think it could help some people, but I think, as you said, high school just isn't really made for entrepreneurs. Something that I've told a few teachers that very rarely I get a common response from or get a positive response from is I tell a lot of teachers I think high school is very much made to make workers in America and to make kids into people that are going to work for someone else. And that's a big part why high school just isn't really meant for me. And I've had people tell me to expand on that. And I usually just say, you learn from a young age to listen to authority that is authority because they said so, and then you are being told to do different tasks for a reward or a grade, which is very similar to just hearing stuff from your boss, doing different tasks for a reward or a paycheck. And it's almost just scary how similar it is. And it was very just, I could see very easily that high school and schooling is not meant for entrepreneurs because why am I not learning how to make money on my own? And why am I doing these assignments that are very strict on how I should do it? I've had different like especially history assignments where they'll ask to do a one pager on this type of stuff or an essay on something. And I've asked a lot of time if I can make a documentary because I love editing. It's one of my favorite things. And I've probably only had 2 out of 50 assignments where someone has let me do a documentary. And the 2 assignments, they loved it. But why am I having to do these assignments in a very strict way? Why can't I fluctuate on my own and make it on my own way? And it just dawned on me that school is made to make workers, and I'm not trying to work for someone my whole life. So that's one of the big reasons why schooling is very hard for me and getting through that.
That's very well said, Brody. Wow, that's an impressive understanding of how it is. Because I've often thought, no, I guess my next question would be like, are there people in your family or are there other people that have inspired you? And maybe I'll just share a little bit for myself. Is I was fortunate that my dad was an entrepreneur and my mom was as well. And I had a lot of uncles. And so I saw it was in our family, that's all everybody was. And so I thought that was normal. Obviously, that's not normal, but that was normal for me. And so you think your normal is normal.
Mhm.
And this idea of promoting creativity and quest, like right now, as a dad of 3 small children, like I would love if I could go back and talk to now who knows if I'd have the maturity to listen to this, but like having it'd be amazing to have a high school curriculum where you could have professionals like myself or a plumber or an electrician or a designer or anybody in the real world that has a business to come in, and you would have a set speaking list, right? Like
Yeah.
what high school kid wouldn't be interested to talk about the theater and the interest in the variety? It'd be just fascinating,
Mhm.
right? And you'd have someone come in and do 2 weeks of what it is to balance a checkbook, to do a QuickBooks account, like real world application stuff,
Mhm.
like not like super complicated. Like you've
Mhm.
learned a lot of the stuff I'm sure and that you've had to in the last year, but it's just stuff that you actually have to do. Great.
Mhm.
Okay, that's done. Let's talk about like filing taxes. How does that
Mhm.
work? And because a lot of this ends up falling on a parent,
Oh, yeah.
which depending on their job, their career, and that is the point of the education system is to educate.
Mhm.
To your point, we're educating people to listen to their bosses.
Yeah.
We're not educating to think creatively
Oh, yeah.
and not that I think that's to be not completely unfair. There are certainly some of my favorite teachers were amazing. I have many teachers that were super inspiring and I would say the creativity is off the charts, but they were
Mhm.
usually like language classes. They
Yeah.
were
English teacher is a big one
yeah,
for me.
exactly. Yeah, 100%. My Mr. Finnegan, shout out to him. He ended up getting fired for doing all kinds of bad things, but
Oh,
he was an amazing creative person. And
okay.
so, a little bit like sometimes a little too creative. But anyway, my point is like everyone has a teacher or two that they can name that had a huge impact on their life.
Yeah.
And I wonder how much of this is higher up, either federal or state level, where like the curriculum sort of puts shackles on teachers. I don't know
Mhm.
the answer to that. Actually, this would actually be fascinating to have a public educator on
Yeah,
to
yeah,
talk
yeah.
to see because how much of it is out of the high school teachers even ability to do something with it.
Honestly, so I had when I first started my snow removal business, or I guess the second year I did it, last December, not last December, December before that, December 2023.
When it actually snowed, because last
Yeah.
year it didn't snow.
And that's when I first really dived into my snow removal, and that was before I started Urban Elite. And I was talking to an English teacher of mine, Mrs. Kuhn, and she helped me a lot actually to motivate me to be a business owner. And I probably wouldn't be where I am without her because I think I told her a lot about what I want to do. And she like told me that it is really inspiring and that I have a gift that I have to use. And at the time, I didn't really even think about really going head into it. But she told me if I can make some designs that she can put it on a poster and make some posters for me through the schools, like crafting or how they make their posters through that. So I made 10 posters at the start through a design that I sent to her and she got it printed through like the district's printing company. But after that, when they realized that it was for a student's business, they completely shut her down for the future. So she made 10 of the posters and then they told her that she couldn't do that again. So I think that was very weird because I'm like, she's paying for it. She put money out of her own pocket to pay for it. And it was very weird that it was just shut it down immediately and you can't make any more. That's done.
This episode is brought to you by Pella Northland. For 20 years, I've been using Pella windows, and I couldn't be happier to call them as a business partner a trade partner, and someone that really supports us in our quality builds. We use wood windows and doors on every single one of our homes, and 98% of every home that I've ever built has been a Pella window. I've gotten to know their team here locally as well as nationally, and the way that they support us as a craftsman, as well as they support our homeowners with their lifelong guarantee, has actually been a game changer for me. So when people ask me who I use, I recommend Pella. If you want to hear more about Pella's story, you can listen to episode 1, where I interview Peter and Ed from Pella Northland about their journey into the Pella ownership. The thing that's so hard about hearing a story like that is I don't know if this is actually how it went, but I could see how it is. Like, hey, we're doing this for Brody. So if we do this for Brody, it's almost like a communist thought process. If we're doing it for Brody, we got to do it for everybody else. We're not going to do it for everybody else. Therefore, we shouldn't do it for Brody.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Mhm.
Do you agree? That's
yeah.
probably the conversation goes. What's cool about the entrepreneur is you didn't take no for an answer. What did you do after that?
I found out where else I can print it.
Hello, shocker. It's awesome. Oh man, we just need more entrepreneurs. Let's talk more about inspiring people. Mrs. Kuhn, shout out to her. Who else in your life has inspired? What are your parents or siblings or family like? How do they look at all this?
I think out of all my family, the only person that truly inspires and helps me all the time is my mother. She did own a real estate company before I was alive, and as a baby, I didn't really experience any of it. But the biggest thing is she's a travel nurse out in St. Cloud, and she works like crazy since I was a kid. I remember as a kid, actually, when I had to write like a Mother's Day gift in first or second grade, I would say that my mom is nocturnal because she would be going out and she'd be working all night and then sleeping through the day. Like 12-hour shifts at night every night, sleeping through the day, and doing it again, and seeing like the mentality of how much she can just work and just work and do amazing things and be consistent with it, that really motivated me, because I just thought if she can just have that kind of working mentality and like that kind of hustle, that I can too. And that's probably where I got it from. And when I first started my company, she was very interested in it. She didn't know exactly what I was doing because I couldn't really have anything to show for it exactly. But I'd say probably I'd say like first a couple months, she was like, this is cool. This is cool. You should keep doing this. Just make sure you're checking up on the grades and stuff like that. And then I had my newspaper come out, and then she's seen like I was actually very serious about this. And since then, she's helped me with some financial struggles I've had. She's helped me get to events. She's helped me with a ton of different things, and she's made her own sacrifices. She's picked up more shifts to be able to help me fund stuff and all these different things. And she has put a lot of effort and a lot of stuff into helping me and believing in me. And even times where I'm feeling down or I'm having struggles of self doubt and all these things, she's there to pick me up and help me and tell me that I have a gift and that I'm talented and I can go with this.
Sounds like an
Start with
amazing
this.
mom. I
Oh,
love
yeah,
her. What's her
100%.
name?
Nancy.
Nancy. All right, Nancy, I like you. Mrs. Kuhn and Nancy, you got my respect.
Oh, yeah.
But you can see from the modeling there, mind, sight, and sacrifice. The two
Mhm.
things we talked about 20 minutes ago, your mom had them in spades with how did she talk? Was it things she said, or was it her modeling it in her life that really spoke the most to you?
Honestly, I think it's more modeling in her life because I could see it. She would probably even less talk about it. It would be a lot more. She doesn't want to have us worry about her or think she's overworking herself or anything. It's very easy for me to worry about her because I don't want my mom working herself to the grave and all this type of stuff. And that's a big motivation for me to make success and to be where I am, because I would love to retire my mom and pay off a lot of her debt, all these type of things. That's a very, very big drive for me. And I dream about that all the time, like to the day that I can just buy my mom a house. That's one of my biggest goals ever in my whole entire life. And it's very easy for a single mom I live with my sister at the moment. I have two other siblings, but I only live with my sister. But single mom taking care of two kids, working 12, 16-hour shifts almost every day, an hour and a half away that she drives and commutes to. It's very easy for me to worry about her, especially even if she doesn't want me to. So I think like her modeling how much she can just like work her butt off, come home, feed kids, take care of the kids. Like that's been a very big model my whole entire life.
Gosh, sounds like an amazing person. From a inspirational standpoint, what other businesses do you look at that you find inspiration in now that you're in the apparel world? As you look around, both on a local level and even a national or world level, are there other businesses that you would either seek to collaborate with or model yourself after? Or is that not something that really either drives you? You're maybe aware of competition or aware of what the market is, but I guess looking out at the landscape, the reason framing the question is I get a lot of intrinsic motivation, looking at other builders or other podcasters. I'm like, oh, I like how they do that. I'm going to try to take that little thing here. Or I'm constantly like learning, whether it's something I'm reading, something I'm listening to, and you don't really know how it's impacting your craft,
Yeah.
but it is. Are you, and you're pretty young into your craft, you're less than just over a year. Where are you at when you look outside?
That's a good question. I have a lot of brands around Minnesota that I'm like good friends with and that I've talked to a lot. I don't know if there's necessarily a brand that I would want to be like or that motivates me. I think there's a lot of designer brands, like bigger ones like Louis Vuitton or all these type of things that are like that. A lot of those kind of motivate me because eventually I want it to be more of that luxury type of brand. So I think I've read up a lot about the story of rather the family of Gucci or Louis Vuitton or all these different people. I think those are probably more of the entrepreneurs that motivate me. Otherwise, just a lot of entrepreneurs that started from nothing and made something. That's just what really motivates me a lot because some people start with a lot of money and then they start a business, but people who make a business out of nothing and are fully self taught, that's what motivates me the most.
Are you a podcast guy, or how do you listen to other book tapes? Are you a reader? How do you get
Uh,
information? Are you more just YouTubes and documentaries and more?
I would say primarily I listen to a lot of people give advice on YouTube. Otherwise, I do read a lot of books. I wish I could read more if I had more time.
Yeah.
That's a big goal for me this year. But otherwise, I do get a lot of education on YouTube. If you look in the right place and if someone's talking with authenticity and if they actually know what they're talking about, I like listening to people talk about different mindset things or different stuff to how to market or run a business and a lot of stuff like that.
I'll send you after this. There's a podcast I listen to quite a bit called Founders.
Okay.
And basically he reads a 1 hour synopsis of a book about Louis Vuitton or Gucci or Ferrari or whatever. And so many of the entrepreneurs, especially it's called in the fashion world, it's really amazing how they built their empires, the small little things that they did early on.
Hmm.
And controlling costs is always a big one.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'll send you the podcast. You can listen to a few of them. He's done hundreds of them. So you
Sounds
can
good to
pick
me.
and choose which ones you want. From going back to a business operational standpoint, controlling costs. Are you able to, if you're selling a shirt for 35, are you able to, obviously the more you buy in quantity, the better deal you can get.
Mhm.
At where are you at right now in the continuum of bulk ordering to try to increase profitability? Because there's a couple little levers here,
Mhm.
quantity and profitability.
Yeah.
How are you finding levering those here?
Again, it's kind of 50-50. I don't really have another way to make an income outside of this. I have my snow removal on the side. I have a normal part-time job that I'm on call with that I went on call about 2 months ago, but I can only really work 2 to 3 days every month. Honestly, it's because I have stuff like podcasts or filming or a lot of different things. And recently I've heard that it's a good idea to have a rest day. So I never really had that. So I decided that maybe I should have 1 to 3 days a month that I should just have a rest day. So I'm trying to incorporate that in my schedule. I have a lot of different events. I have different family stuff. It's very hard to make the money for it right now. But that's something I've been tackling recently, venturing into other ways of making money through freelance jobs like logo creation or different things like that, or stock photos, these type of things. I'm recently trying to go into small businesses and create promo videos for them. Next Wednesday, I'll be going to a donut shop in Apple Valley that I tried out to shoot a free promo video for them so I can build a portfolio through that and make some money through videography. So I'd say it's that's probably one of the biggest parts, the financial aspect of it. But I just never give up, and I know that if I keep going and I keep growing in my business and keep selling more and keep making money in other ways that are fun to me, I know that I can get to that bulk area, and I know I will. But I think right now it's still not. I don't only have 5 hoodies. I still have around like 30 of each, something like that. But I want to get more of a bulk so I can save a lot more money on it. It's just about balancing that financial aspect and making money outside of it.
Have you been, in terms of like high school, you've been successful, I would imagine, in your own school because you were there. Obviously, you can wear the product, people can talk to you. The reason your startups or your pop-up shops are so successful is people like people, right?
Mhm.
I have a 11-year-old niece who she makes $300, $400 a weekend at a little market. She makes jewelry and whatever. And
Okay.
you're going to buy from, not, no shame on 40-year-old doing
Mhm.
jewelry, but am I going to buy a 12-year-old? Yeah, there's something,
Mhm.
people do gravitate towards giving you a chance.
Yeah.
remember some of the biggest homes that I've built early on in my career compared to the competition I had. Well, youth was an advantage.
Mhm.
One of the messages that I hope people, that if especially if they're younger listening to this, is that youth is not, sure, like anything, any pro can be a con and any con can be a pro. If you think youth is a con, then it might be. But guess what? It's a huge pro
100%.
because there are many people that will listen to this, myself included. I'm
Mhm.
already thinking of 5 ways that, hey, how can I collab with you? How can I do something with you? And because the idea is people are inspired by other people
Yeah.
because we're humans.
Mhm.
God made us to react to humans.
Oh, yeah.
So like,
100%.
we find energy from each other, we
Mhm.
find creativity from each other. And so it's like that, to making this motion of almost like just ideas, like the more that come
Mhm.
together, you get this energy output.
Yeah.
And just keep going, keep, like your dream says, keep pushing, keep going, and your dreams are a reality. What is 3 years from now? So you're are you a sophomore or junior in high
Junior.
school? So you're a junior. So 2 years from now, 3 years from now, where would you hope to see yourself? Both literally physically, but also as a business.
I would like to move out after senior year, get a apartment down probably Roseville or Blaine, somewhere close to Minneapolis, because that's where I do a lot of my content and a lot of my events and stuff like that. Living in Minneapolis is expensive, so I'm trying to find places around there. But I think maybe in the next 2 to 3 years, I would like to see me fully self-sustained from my business. I'd like to see using a fully custom manufacturer overseas that makes everything custom, from the fitting of it to the different fabrics, all that kind of stuff, which I want to do in the next probably only a couple of months actually. But I think in by the time I'm 20s, I want to start going overseas and meeting manufacturers in person in China and other places where they have these different events where they have manufacturers at. And I want to be very hands on with it. And I would also love to do motivational speaking around my 20s or even younger as fast as I can.
You can do it now.
I've been putting some emails in, but some people don't want to listen to a 17-year-old talk
I
about
would.
business.
I would. I think it's awesome.
But that's a big thing. I'd love to do a motivational speaking because I think a lot of even like kids that are in school, if they have a motivational speaker come in, they don't want to listen to them for the most part. They're like, I want to go home. I want to do this. But if I can gravitate and like actually grab someone's attention that's a kid in high school and just really motivate them through my work and my words, that's something that if I had seen at a younger age, seen a 16 or 17-year-old telling me that they started this business at 16 and they're doing all of this, that would have motivated me a lot. So I want to do that same type of thing for kids around the world. And I think one of the biggest things I think about a lot is there's a lot of kids that might be in bad families or bad situations that people around them are telling you, you can't do this, you're not going to be successful. And coming from like some situations where I was being told you're not going to be successful, you can't do this, I had to like just fully tell myself I can do this and just start believing in yourself, even if the people around you are telling you otherwise. Because at the end of the day, like all the stuff that you want in life, everything is up to you. And that's when I realized that I had to start a business, when I realized that no one was coming to save me and that my life and my future is up to me.
Yeah. No, I think that's a pretty powerful way to end the podcast. What if people want to reach out? I believe it's urbanelite.com.
UrbanEliteUnite.com.
And we'll have everything in the show notes as well.
Mhm.
And it's been a joy having you on, getting to know you a little bit.
Yeah, thank you for
And
let me come on.
I've got a whole list of things to talk about after we're off air as well, because now I'm just super excited about all this. And thanks again for coming on the Curious Builder.
Yeah.
I actually forgot to ask you, how did you hear about the Curious Builder?
ChatGPT.
Attaboy. Thanks for ranking us high. Love it. Until next time. Thanks
All
for
right.
joining.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me.
We're excited to announce that the Curious Builder collectives are going into 3 other states. For those not familiar with what the collective is, it lives between what the Contractor Coalition is and a Builder 20 group. What we do in each state is we have a group of 25 to 30 builders that get in a room, and you break up into groups of 9. You spend 45 minutes talking about a set topic, whether it's branding, marketing, contracts, whatever that set topic is for that day. And then you talk for 45 minutes, you get up, you mix up the groups and you do it again, and you're out of there. You'll be out in under 3 hours. We're going to be going to Phoenix, Arizona. Brad Levitt is going to be leading a Curious Collective in Phoenix, Arizona. We are going to San Antonio. We've got David and Angela Penske from Penske Homes leading a group down there. And we have Brad Robinson and Vince Longo in Atlanta, Georgia, also leading a collective, as well as obviously me in Minnesota as well for our 2nd annual collective. So if you're interested in collaborating with other builders, if you really want to dive deep on your business in a person-to-person relationship, ask a lot of questions, the collectives are for you. We also have in Minnesota an interior design collective, as well as the architect collective. Check out the events page at thecuriousbuilderpodcast.com. Thanks for tuning in to the Curious Builder podcast. If you like this episode, do us a favor, share it with 3 other business owners. The best way that we can spread what we're doing is by word of mouth, and with your help, we can continue to help other curious builders expand their business. Please share it with your friends, like and review online, and thanks again for tuning in.